welcome everybody. This week's episode, we have the privilege of Commissioner Eric Colvin from St. Mary's County, and we wanted to spend some time talking about the private toll possibility on the Solomon's Island Bridge with a new bridge. Tune in, and we'd like to thank our sponsor this week, Been There, Dumped That. We'll see you soon. Bye. All right, welcome everybody. This is Get Real with Mark and Chris and Mark. We always mess that up, but today we have the privilege of having Commissioner Eric Colvin, and I was just saying that we from St. Mary's County. I was just saying that we had mentioned in a previous podcast some stuff about the bridge, and I knew that you had some conversations about it, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to delve into that topic and get real with it, right?
First of all, I just want to thank you as a St. Mary's County Commissioner for joining us on our podcast today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm happy to be back with you again.
We had a Charles County Commissioner.
That's
too.
true.
We did.
Well, this is my second time.
This is your second time, and we've
Come
had.
on, Chris. That's not where I'm showing.
I know. I know where you're going. I know where you're going. Well, let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
If you're a Calvert County Commissioner, you are formally invited to come on our podcast at any time you want. You let us know, and you're formally invited.
Oh.
Sorry, we're throwing our shade out here, I guess, today.
I hear it. It's not at me. It's all good.
So, well, first thing I want to say is there's been such a lot of cool and exciting things going on in St. Mary's County.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to see the commissioners. Sometimes we don't always agree, but we always, the good of St. Mary's County is always in the forefront. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, everyone who runs, everyone who's in office, it's because we love where we live and we really want to try and make it better.
Yeah.
Or
keep it the same in some places.
Or keep it the
same.
There's no such thing as sitting still. You're only going backwards or forwards, and you get to choose which direction.
That is true.
So speaking of going backwards and forwards, so the conversation about this bridge, right?
Yes.
And going, and we had mentioned that, we think that the possibility of a new bridge, the Solomon's Island Bridge, it would probably have to be maybe some sort of private-public partnership or something like that. And then we started discussing tolls. And who was here with us and talked about that? It was Delegate Matt Morgan was in here, and he brought it up. So I want to give him credit for that too. And I immediately said, no, hell no. Right?
It's funny because the idea of a toll on that bridge never existed prior to a certain lobbyist firm coming into the equation for a private company who builds bridges in return for toll money. Okay?
Right.
Which happened 2.5 years ago or so.
Which sounds like a pretty lucrative business.
It's a great business. They've done the concept in a few areas of the country, and essentially what they do is they build a bridge that they know is going to last at least 100 years. And, some of it's paid for from the state, and then the rest is funded privately. And then essentially, once they prove the concept of the fee structure, now you have a revenue-producing engine. It's almost like a front foot fee. Think of it that way. Like front foot fees, builders, they put the infrastructure in the ground, they charge the front foot fee, then they package the whole deal up and they sell it to Wall Street because it's a guaranteed return.
Right.
It's the same way with the toll bridge. So these guys came about, they started chirping, they met with all the chambers, they've been working on our politicians, lobbying for this toll bridge for some time. But I don't think, at least to my knowledge, I had never heard the idea of a toll on the Solomon's Bridge. Now what's interesting is that then we went from this person lobbying, right, to in our most recent session with the Calvert County Chamber and our legislators to it was actually Senator Jack Bailey saying, don't think that we're ever going to get a bridge without a toll. That's a direct quote, by the way. So that's what he said. He said,
well, we've invited Jack on. He'll come on. I think Jack's going to come on and we'll talk about that.
He said there is no chance that we get a Solomon's Island Bridge without a toll.
Well, I'm not sure if that's...
That blew my mind because it's like, that's how far did it stretch? And I like Jack. I don't have any issue
no,
with
this is a personal thing.
But that's what he said, and I think that's just the mentality that's been beat into the equation But then, where do you come up with those ideas? It's from whatever's chirping in your ear,
Well,
which has been a lobbyist firm talking
and,
about a
and
toll
it
for the
doesn't
last
help
3
the
years.
budget deficit things that are coming up
Yeah.
too. So I'm sure that's going to make matters even more.
You got to find the funds, and we're not talking
Right.
about a cheap bridge.
This
It's going to be very expensive.
This is federal
bridge.
money,
True.
though, right?
Yeah.
Like, is this, Eric? Is
Federal
it
and state.
Federal and state. So
Yep.
I mean, which we talked about, we
Well,
should have had a long time ago. But
Yeah.
So before we jumped on here,
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you this, but I had a meeting a couple weeks ago with U.S. Congressman David Trone,
okay,
who is running for Ben Cardin's seat as
yeah.
senator. So, he came down, met with the chambers, and he
Nice.
basically said, hey, what do you guys need? What can I help you with? And the first thing out of my mouth was, we need a bridge.
Right.
And he said, well, why hasn't Stinny gotten that done for you? I probably shouldn't say that. I probably just incited some sort of war, but
he's invited here too. Let's just put that out there.
I think that Stinny's already already pushing his opponent, so I don't think it
Got it.
matters. But look, and that's true. Like, why hasn't Stinny gotten that done yet? And in his case, he said, look, I've been in for 2 terms. And he said, I was able to secure $330 million for Montgomery and Frederick counties for bridges and projects. And that was just federal money in his 2 terms. He said we had 2 of the largest infrastructure bills in our history, have been passed in recent years here. And we should get that money. Where is that money, So that is the question.
So, Commissioner, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think? What do you?
So,
where do we?
Back in April, we had the United Bridge Partners come and talk to us, and
okay.
they presented to us how they work. And nothing against them. They're a company that is selling a product. I just don't want to buy their product. And they would build the bridge. They claim they could build it very quickly, and then they would maintain it, but they would control the tolls too.
Right.
And they try to sweeten the deal by saying local governments would get a little portion of that toll money. And so, first off, none of the commissioners have said they want to see a toll there. Some of the commissioners have been more open to the idea because they've bought into that concept that if there's going to be a toll, we want some of the revenue from it versus the state taking it all. But none of them have said that they want a toll there. In my mind, I've always been opposed to it. I straight up told the company, I can't support this. And they're like, well, thanks for being upfront with us. They're going to have some community town hall type events to be able to judge interest. But I don't think it's there.
Speaking of interest, you did a little random survey.
So I did a survey because I knew they were going to do their own stuff, but I just wanted to have numbers that I could trust and believe. And I'm not a professional pollster. I'm not a statistician.
Which is good.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not a statistically viable survey by any stretch, but I threw it up on my website through Facebook, and the Baynet shared it, so thank you to the Baynet for that.
Nice.
And I had almost 3,000 people respond, and 93% are opposed to a toll bridge going in.
Well, there we go.
So the people have spoken.
That's
Right.
pretty clear.
That's a pretty good sampling.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
say.
you can't assume that's a very good sampling actually. Like that's
Yeah, I would think that's pretty
and that
good.
percentage is just so basically everybody's opposed. 90%.
I mean, I'm
of
one
people
of them, so
yeah,
take
right. Me
one
too.
off of
Right.
that, but-
So
Yeah,
no, and
I think that, in my opinion, a toll bridge versus no bridge or no new bridge, right? It's the same. It's a wash because, and especially this is me advocating for Calvert County.
that's a
now.
great point actually.
Because for Calvert County, you've done nothing. If anything, actually you've actually hurt the southern end of Calvert County's economy.
Right.
Because and you've actually hurt St. Mary's County's
So our
economy
economies
too.
are so intertwined across that bridge.
Yep.
That bridge is an
You
incredible.
add a toll.
Yeah.
Guess what?
It's-
I'm not shopping at
I
Harris Teeter
remember-
anymore. I'm going to Giant.
I
or I'm
remember
going to
when that
Weis.
bridge was down. I remember that,
Yeah.
and it was painful for a lot of people.
Now the interesting thing is, since COVID and more people are teleworking, the traffic isn't quite as bad as it used to be.
No, traffic hasn't been horrendous. It
So
hasn't
you
been
had
horrendous, but
there were some numbers on the Solomon's Bridge versus the Harry Nice Bridge.
So
into
that's
Virginia.
interesting. You know,
I
brand
was
new Harry
fascinated by
Nice
this.
Bridge, Mac Middleton Bridge over there. It's that bridge was built incredibly fast. It was faster than the Leonardtown Road redo there for a variety of reasons. But That bridge gets less traffic on a daily basis than the Solomon's Bridge. The Solomon's
Isn't that
Bridge
crazy?
That is
has
crazy.
roughly 25,000 trips a day, and the Virginia Bridge has roughly 18,000 trips a day.
So I wonder if that's an average, like, because summer peak months are probably much higher in the.
But you
in the
figure
nice bridge
the Virginia Bridge is, once across the bridge, whereas
Yeah.
Solomon's Bridge, people go back and forth
Both
all day
ways.
long.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I just think, I just think that we need to take into consideration. Obviously, there's tax revenue that's been paid out, and we've complained for many years that the money that comes out of St. Mary's County, particularly, goes up to Annapolis and then ends up getting stuck north of us, right, for a multitude of reasons. This is an opportunity for them to reinvest in Southern Maryland. Really,
this is
and the state needs
absolutely
to do
key
this.
state infrastructure.
It really
like
is.
You've got the evacuation route if something was to happen with the power plant. You have national security with the base. I mean, it is an important route.
It should be a state and federal priority.
And I would think that when they do get around to building a new bridge, it probably won't look like the existing bridge. It doesn't need to be
sure
as
it
tall.
Right.
It needs to be a little wider. It needs to just be a...
It's
could be a good
interesting. When
bridge.
you said something earlier where this company came in and said they can build it relatively quickly. I'm like, have they built anything on the water in the state of Maryland anytime?
I don't know.
In other states, they've been able to build it pretty
Right.
quick.
It might be a different animal for
Very
Maryland.
true.
That's a good question. How much of that the Nice Bridge is
Yeah, right.
in Maryland? I think most of it's in
I
Maryland.
think the whole thing is.
Yeah, it kind of debunks.
So
that idea.
So the state owns the bridge because it's a state highway,
Yeah.
right? That's how that works, right?
Correct.
But the waterway, the Patuxent River,
State.
is state, right? Yeah. Just checking.
Yeah.
Running through.
But the
my-
feds control it too.
Well, that's
there's-
true
there's a
too,
lot
right?
of-
It's interesting because I remember back in the day there was such a press for the reason the bridge is so high is so big ships could come in at that point, and I think they've kind of at this point deciphered that that's not an
remember
issue.
back
When
Not an
there
issue.
was first discussion of the redesigns that happened when I was in high school, by the way. It's like 2004, 2005 is when they came out with here's our 3 different
I remember
plans.
the
Yeah.
plans.
It was like $10 million in engineering or like concepts that they spent.
and they're going to probably have to redo them all.
Yeah.
It
be
was
a deal
almost
today.
It was almost 20 years ago.
$10 million,
that
you
they
can't
did
replace
that. Yeah, they-
HVAC at a school.
Well, they- right.
True.
That's true.
It is true.
But my point is so when they did that back then, I remember that, and this is chirps of memories because it was so long ago. But I remember the community was in somewhat of an uproar about the idea of the bridge being less high, believe it or not.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, it's
Because of
iconic.
its presence.
Yeah.
It is iconic.
It is.
kind of-
And there's the whole other piece of this too, and I brought it up in the conversation with David Trone as well, because I was telling you earlier, his claim to fame is mental health and
Right.
opioid resources
Yep.
and stuff like that, and it's a bridge where people have taken their life from
That's
that
true
bridge.
too. Yeah.
And I think we even talked about it.
We
on
did. We
here
had a whole
once
episode on it.
before.
Mhm.
We talked about the fact that the bridge is just it's such an easy thing to do.
Right.
There needs to be some sort of fencing. There's been pushes for netting and all this stuff. So we're not just talking about a bridge that's in the backside of its life degrading.
And I'll tell you, that is a conversation we continue to have with the Maryland Department of Transportation. Like,
Right.
we met with them
That's very
over
good.
at the MACO conference, and that's one of the topics that came up. I mean, they say it's difficult on that bridge. And the sad reality is we're dealing with mental health crisis issues in our country, and it's happening around the world,
So
too.
it's
But-
funny when all that, there was a buzz about that. It was probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
And when all that was going down, I made a personal effort to get involved and make a push with our state legislators. And I had some conversations with each of my delegation, right? And ultimately, the response that I got, it was Delegate Clark at the time, who said, well, there was a report done, and putting netting or doing fencing, it's not going to make a difference, right? Well, ironically enough, I made him send me the report, and I actually read it, and the report actually said that it makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
So,
but you know what?
I'm
Here's
like,
where my issue is.
what?
Is like I've always said this obviously, I would support some sort of preventative measures for somebody jumping off the bridge. However, how much life is left in this bridge?
Right.
Right? Are you throwing money at something
Well-
that you're going to have to tear down?
And maybe
Right,
that's what's of consideration. But then it's like, okay, well, the caveat to that is
I get it. How much is one life
worth?
worth? Right, I get it.
Agreed.
How much is one life
Right.
worth? And given the eons of money that the state and federal government tends to piss away all the time, on various different things, like it's nothing compared to that.
I mean, there's temporary means of things that they can do, and they're aware of that there's temporary things they can do to prevent
I
those
don't
kinds of things.
disagree with your sentiment that, like, why would we invest in a bridge that is towards the end of its life? Then, okay, we need to very quickly have a plan for how we're going to replace it,
Right.
On the opposite side, we need to have a plan for how we're going to replace it. We need to make sure that we take into consideration the
Every
other
time
aspect.
I go over there and I happen to look and I see those straps wrapped around the column, right? My brain immediately says duct tape. Right?
That's what I told the congressman.
And
I said, you guys need to drive down there and see. They said, we're not going that way. We're going across the other bridge.
Are you kidding? We're not going to drive under that bridge. Are you?
We're not going down
We're not
there.
taking that bridge.
Yeah, we're not going down there.
Well, I mean, I'm grateful that you're taking a position on this and understanding
Right.
that, because and obviously the public feels that way, right? Like that's
And so when I did the survey, I wanted to look at, okay, one, did people support this idea? And, there's a lot of different facets to it. It's not a state toll bridge. It would be a private company charging the toll with the ability to increase the toll as they wanted. There, no elected official would have say in what the toll was. And that made me really nervous.
Yeah.
But
And then
their counter sell to that is that, well, we obviously want the toll to be whatever the market will bear.
Right.
Because they don't want to lose.
but the market is very
users.
different for different people here.
Right. That's a really good point. Right.
And it is.
And the other thing is also there's also that people here have doctors over there, and seniors have, and
people
Asbury have
travel
doctors
for a
over
lot
here,
of different
and there's a
reasons.
lot of
I
good,
looked at that in my poll. Like, people go across for work, for family, for leisure, for just a lot of different reasons. And there was a sizable number of people, I don't remember the numbers, that said they would change their patterns if a toll bridge came in.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, some would go up to
it
the
would change
Benedict
things for
Bridge,
sure.
which, the Benedict Bridge is pretty full too. And it would not be
wouldn't
good.
go to Harris Teeter anymore.
I guess we wouldn't. Solomon's Island would even have an impact too.
It would
though.
be an
You know what I
impact,
mean?
yeah.
Solomon's Island would
Settle
definitely
for
have an
some
impact.
food choices. You think it would be good or bad?
Bad.
Yeah.
We see we have some phenomenal restaurants here in St. Mary's County.
That's true,
so,
for sure. But what's funny? We were talking about this last time. Like, actually, if you're a purveyor of a hotel / something over there, you might be taking into consideration this bridge conversation very quickly too.
Yeah.
That's an important issue, right?
Yeah.
Because if that bridge becomes a toll, you're getting half as many people coming across.
Yep.
It's true.
And I don't know. I just think the private. I'm all about public-private partnerships. I think it's important. I think it adds value to the local government.
I do too. But key infrastructure is not the place in
I
my
think you're
mind.
right.
Yeah.
I think
This
you're
is
right.
a basic government function right here.
I think it could be the place. I think the recipe is wrong.
Okay.
The idea of the toll and a private company sustaining the toll over a period of time is what I have concerns about.
I still get back to
But
wait a minute.
obviously-
We put a lot of tax revenue into the state and to our national economy from Southern Maryland.
Right.
It's time for them to reinvest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's pull the plugs. Let's get real, right? The money that's getting shipped out of our area and going, it's a significant amount of every dollar.
Well,
that is
and
that is-
the amount of
To the
highway
state or
user
to the state.
feds?
To the state. We'll go with the state.
The highway user
both.
fees
It's
that the
both.
state collects from all of us
Right.
don't come back to the county like they used to.
Right,
Back
that's-
in 2008, they really decreased it what it is. And so we have to repave our roads, and Calvert County does too. And
Yeah.
and then now with more and
We're
more electric
essentially
vehicles.
subsidizing all
Yep.
the stuff for the cities.
That's
essentially.
exactly right.
That's, yeah, it is. It is. But this is a key infrastructure for the entire state. It really
And
is.
about that public-private partnership thing, I don't care if we call it the marijuana bridge. I don't care if that's what we do, if that's what you want to name it, and take your money from that resource. I'm all about it. Go do what you got to do, but just don't put another
Man,
toll on
imagine the
consumers.
tourism. Everybody come see the
you
green
can get
bridge.
high on that
Come see,
bridge.
we can make
I
it
mean,
green.
it's,
You get high and you get green bridge.
Man,
Oh,
I think we
goodness.
just
Oh,
yellow
goodness.
ducked Solomon.
I think we did. That was good.
I do not support that, just so you know. Yeah.
Sometimes we put it out there. We probably shouldn't. But that's okay. Anyway, so
Yeah.
so what else you have to share with us? Anything different that you want to
I don't
Anything
know.
new
Well,
and exciting?
congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You're about to become, not quite yet, right?
Not quite
You're
yet.
going to
This
become the
September.
Maryland Association of Realtors president.
I am. Thank you very much.
That's a pretty
Yeah.
big deal.
It is a pretty big deal. Thank you very
Yeah,
much. I'm excited about it, but you threw me a curveball. I didn't.
Well, hey, let's turn the tables a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, that's good.
Does that mean you get to boss him around?
Yep.
No, not at all. I get the same old crap anyway.
We've got
Honestly,
fairs coming up.
kudos to him because
Oh,
with
yeah.
what we do, carving out
Yeah.
the time to
it's hard.
go and
Thank you.
advocate. I mean,
Yeah. It's important. The realtors advocate for a lot. I felt it.
Yeah, yeah, we do a bunch of
I
stuff,
think
and
the,
so
I think that the general population doesn't realize like the fights that we as realtors in a lot of cases are out there leading, and especially in your seat as president of the Maryland Association, which you'll be able to do for homeowners and their property rights, and a lot of the conversations we bring on here are property rights.
no, we're taking on some pretty good topics too. So I mean, we're going to be one is advocacy for the Board of Education to take on financial literacy as a
we talked about
requirement.
that.
That would be
as
wonderful.
a requirement.
I think that's
and
a great
I think
thing.
being for the youth to be able to know how to save money for buying a house, and for people to know that you can have a savings account for your children and your grandchildren for a first-time home buyer. People don't know that's there and pay tax free.
Right.
So
People
there's
need to
great
understand how
opportunities,
credit
and we
cards
need to,
work.
and they need to know
how
how a credit
debt
card
works.
And I mean, we have
It's amazing to me they still don't teach that in school.
well, I think
I
there's a
think
piece
some
that's
teachers
required.
do
There's
that.
actually a portion of its requirement, but I don't think there's a graduation requirement. That's something we really need to talk about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff that's
I
happening.
think that just reinstilling into the youth the idea of homeownership is incredibly
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, I think so too.
Creating intergenerational wealth.
I'm going to change the subject yet one
Okay,
more
yeah.
time since we're all over the map today.
Yeah.
There's been conversation about, and there's a curveball, so I'm sorry. Conversation about a sports complex.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about that, or what the?
Sure. It's not a new topic.
No, I know it's been out there.
talked about for a while, and so we just approved the next phase of the study, and it's totally in study form right now.
Okay.
I mean, the big question for me is where would the funding come from for
Huge
it?
sports complex.
And
That sounds like a good place for a public-private partnership.
It does. It really does. I mean, but there's a lot of other implications. The traffic it would have, because right now we're looking at St. Andrews Church Road on Route 4 there, and it just...
So studies are going on.
It's just
That's
study
a piece
form
that
right
was
now.
supposed
It
to
is.
be a high
school.
school at one point in time.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was,
It's, it's a ways off.
Yeah.
If,
No, I read about it somewhere. I thought I'd just
Would
bring
there
it up
be a
and see.
hockey ranking?
probably not.
You just upset a lot of people.
Yeah, I know.
Or at least a small.
Wait a minute! I hear them rising up now already.
Yeah.
They're coming. Here they come.
Ice hockey? Because that's a whole
that's
other
a-
ball game.
Ice hockey's a big deal.
It is a big
It is.
deal. It
It's-
is. It's a legitimate sport. It's a
they're-
very specialized use versus a
Right.
field.
There's a big push out
Yeah,
there.
especially
for
in
ice hockey.
schools. There is.
Oh,
It
yeah.
really is. It has been for about 10 years
Yeah.
now since
Because they
the
have
Waldorf,
to go to Waldorf, is the
or
closest one, or,
my son and daughter both play.
There's push for Olympic-sized swimming pool, which would be phenomenal to have, but it costs. There's a push for indoor tennis facility. It costs. And
Yeah.
it all costs money, and people just need to understand that it would bring revenue to the county, but it costs.
So there's
Yeah.
been a few of these that I've seen flare up, these like sports complex that are private
Right.
owned that don't seem to do very well. So there was one in Prince Frederick in the industrial park that didn't
I remember
work
that
out.
the batting cages and
Yeah,
stuff
there
like
was
that.
a
were there,
gym, batting cages,
Yeah, I remember that.
Indoor track, basketball court, bunch of stuff. And then the Willows Rec Center,
Right.
which I heard that was closing. I don't know if that's
It's closed,
but-
and the county has
County's
purchased
purchased
it.
Okay.
It's going to be our new gymnastics facility.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That's
Wait,
exciting. That's
the
actually
county has a gymnastics facility?
Yeah.
We have for 20 plus years, I believe. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And from what I understand, that 20 plus years when it was purchased, it stayed exactly the same for those 20 plus years. So it was about time to get a new facility.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's what I'm understanding. But
That's true.
But
That's true.
that's interesting because
Yeah.
I don't think that we have a gymnastics facility
Yeah.
in Calvert. That's for sure.
Well, I always
Not a
say
county
St. Mary's
owns
County,
an asset.
and when people say, there's nothing to do here, and I've heard that.
Yeah, there's a lot to do.
I got to tell you, what do you
Hey,
want?
stop taking shots at JJ.
No, I'm not saying anything. But what do you want? Like it's there.
Yeah.
If you want it, we pretty much kind of have it. I mean, unless you want an ice rink. We don't have an ice rink. I'm sorry, right? But
So one thing coming up for us, to throw another curve for you, in the next couple of weeks, the commissioners are going to be meeting about legislative proposals. And there was a little bit of angst about it last year, the way we handled the process. So it's good to be able to just set the record clear on how I envision we handle it. Citizens are allowed to submit legislation ideas that we will then consider and provide to our state delegation, and then they will then consider it behind closed doors, not open like we do, and they will either take it to Annapolis to try and make it a law or not. But when they submit the legislation requests to us, we will either vote yes, we support it, no, we don't support it, or we take no position on it, and then we'll provide it all to the delegation, and they can decide from there.
Nice.
And the conversations I've had with different members of our delegation, that's how they envision it too, and they're not likely to support something as a delegation if we're opposed to it. But, you
Hopefully.
get all kinds of suggestions, and sometimes we're just opposed to things, and sometimes we just have no position on things.
Well, and it's interesting where the legislation comes from. If it comes from the from the public, that's great. I like that. I think that there's a need. So generally,
I'm pretty sure that's not the case in Calvert.
I got you.
The requests just go out.
Just go send in your legislation. Just put it up there, Mark. I'm sure it'll get right to Annapolis. But no, that's good. So if you have it, is it still open for
I believe
public?
it's still open. I think depending on when this airs, but about 2 weeks from now or so, we're going to consider it all.
Yeah. Well, so if you have a brilliant idea of something that's important to you and you think it'll be beneficial to other people in St. Mary's County,
I'm about to spam your emails.
If it's mandating a new bridge, we all support
I
it.
like it. I like it. Mandating a new bridge. That's a good one. So a good bridge paid for by the state of Maryland and
then
federal funds.
Much more important than that, fair season is coming up.
That's right.
County Fair is my favorite event
It is
all
pretty
year
cool.
long. I love our county fair.
I do too. I think our county fair is just a classic, right? It's just really
so
nice.
good.
Yeah, it really is. So that's exciting. But with that, thank you. We took a lot of your time, and we were all over the map today. But
That's that's what makes it fun.
I really wanted to talk about the bridge.
We stayed on topic.
We did most of the time.
You did. Bounce around
a little bit. Yeah,
so
but
for those people that lingered that long, you got a little extra.
You got a little extra tidbit. So thanks for coming on.
Of course, anytime.
And we love having you on. So
thank you guys.
All right, guys. See you later.